All right, let's go on the record. It's almost 10:09. I think we almost have all of our viewers here. Is there anything we need to address before we begin the trial?
Not from the defense, Your Honor.
Nothing from the state judge.
Okay, so we'll begin in about 10 minutes. We're waiting just for the last viewers to arrive, okay?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, just for court scheduling purposes, I've learned that our defense neurologist should be done.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
For scheduling purposes, I've learned that our defense neurologist worked with the defendant on Thursday, should end at 10:30 a.m.
I'm sorry.
I think he was saying that their evaluation for Thursday is going to go till about 10:30 a.m. So then we could subsequently maybe start somewhere a little bit, maybe an hour after that if the court.
Well,
wanted
the
to.
problem is transport.
Yes, sir.
I'll have to verify with Bill.
Yes, sir.
To see how they can get him from the jail here.
Yes, sir, I'm just letting the court know for scheduling purposes.
Okay, all right. And make sure you speak up or get in front of a microphone, okay? All right, so we'll be recessed right until, right 9 o'clock and we'll get adjourned. Thank you.
Oh, well, yeah. That's okay. Don't worry, it's time to do that. Makes me laugh.
I'm gonna go home and come back.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I saw your message last night. I was,
It's in state code safety.
Mr. Hayes, look who's here.
Yeah. I represent.
Oh, okay.
I guess we're just gonna talk.
Yeah.
Want to show me the board?
Yeah.
Phone 15.
have all of them from Tallahassee.
Who's that?
Kim,
Okay.
so she's going to plan on Thursday morning.
Thursday, and just, I would have them here by like Thursday, like 11.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I need to give it a time.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay, so we're looking at August going on this Thursday.
What the hope would be, Jerry, is
Or at least you can cover it.
Right,
At least only if you can.
right, but the hope is that we might have Thursday, looking at your else, and we might have to have it closed, and we don't want to, you don't want to do it.
My experience with it.
I know, but we'll wait and see, I don't want to wait, if there's every time you can find it, or even.
Then you need to.
Not after closing, only once it's not closed. That's the rule. It's period.
But you know, as a family, to get in, it's really critical in our minds when we have it. People are trying to see, forget things.
Just about one, he's going to. Oh, yeah, they do something where they can't read it. You get an outline here and there. That's a lot of it. You know, if they want to hear that, it's not like closing are in that big. That's for the break now, understand the nature of it, see it be sequestered. So we'll see. I mean, that's why a lot of times people shut off. There's no penalty phase. It's going to push it all the way to Monday or Tuesday. Then you have to line up your contract. So we're trying to never be. That would be the fun. Or would be able to hide the rich. I can't look around, but yes, there's no coverage, like say obviously, which isn't that far away. Obviously,
It's an hour. It's an hour. And I've driven it many times, and it's 95, kill it. I mean, kill it. There's more accidents every day than that.
I know, I've been driving it for the last 2 months here, come here every day.
Oh, that's
Every day
right,
home.
yeah, okay.
So I know.
Yeah.
And I drive even more than that.
Well, I need to be. Yeah, I will. I apologize. I'm sitting on my room here. We're at a table. I don't want to be pending on my floor.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Let me just grab this.
Bill, we need to mute that.
It's going to be.
Actually, it was this one. Go ahead. I think at some point in time today, I'm gonna need everyone's email addresses, so I can start giving you jury instructions, and someone can start looking at them.
Yes, sir.
Jury.
I couldn't.
Just check your pants and pens, please.
Yes.
Any problems, let me know.
Okay, the jury's present, you may be seated. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Did anybody become exposed to any outside information about this case from the media or from another person? Thank you very much. State, call your next witness.
Thank you, Judge. The state will call Jack Bisland.
Hey, sir, if you raise your right hand, please sworn in.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Swear, sir.
Come around here, please. Make sure you speak loud and clear into the microphone so everyone can hear what you have to say, okay?
Yes, sir.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury, spell your last name, sir?
My name is Jack Bisland, B-I-S-L-A-N-D.
Mr. Bisland, what do you do for work right now?
I'm retired.
What did you do for your career?
I spent 41 years in law enforcement, retiring in 2019.
If you can you tell us maybe just a quick history of what sort of assignments you had in law enforcement over that 41-year career?
Certainly. Began my career in 1978 as a city police officer. I worked 11 years with the Longwood Police Department, leaving there in 1989 for an opportunity with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, where I served for 20 years as a special agent conducting investigations, retiring from that position as a resident agent in charge of the Daytona Beach field office. Started a second career with the State Attorney's Office here in the 7th Circuit. Worked there for approximately 7 years and finished my second career after an opportunity with the Flagler County Sheriff's Office, retiring from that position as the undersheriff in 2019.
During your time at FDLE, I know you said you were the resident agent in charge of Daytona. Does that mean you were the supervisor in the Daytona office?
Yes, sir.
Let me take you back to in training and experience. Can you just give us a quick, maybe like 30-second overview of the training you've had to become a law enforcement officer?
Of course, 1977 was my initial training in the Basic Law Enforcement Academy. Received training throughout my career in specialized areas. Spent 12 weeks at the FDLE Agents Academy with additional training, supervisory training, particularly in the area of investigations, crime scene interviews, wiretaps, narcotics investigations. Throughout my career, I've served, most of my time was as an investigator in a variety of different areas, including public integrity, crimes, violent crimes, narcotics crimes.
Thank you, sir. May I bring your attention now to what would have been February of 2006. Were you in that role as the resident agent in charge of the FDLE Daytona office?
Yes, sir, I was.
Did there come a time where you were asked to assist with several different homicides that had occurred in Daytona?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe how you became involved and what the involvement of FDLE was going to be at that point?
Certainly. It was February of 2006, and I was contacted by Captain Brian Skipper of the Daytona Beach Police Department, who was the commander of the Detective Bureau. I was asked to attend a meeting and asked for investigative assistance and resources with the investigation of, at the time, 3 homicides that they were actively involved in, and FDLE had many resources that we could collaborate with and bring to the investigation. So we agreed to do so in partnership with the Daytona Beach Police Department, the State Attorney's Office Homicide Unit, and the Volusia Sheriff's Office.
Did you all form a task force to look into those murders?
Yes, sir.
What initial resources from FDLE did you deploy, and then what other resources did you offer up as part of the task force?
I initially assigned one of the agents in the office, Stephen Miller, to be the case agent from FDLE and help coordinate all the assistance we provided. We provided and had available analytical resources, certainly our crime lab services, profile assessment services, and we had a leads program, which at the time was an automated leads tracking program to help keep track of and collate the overwhelming amount of leads that were generated in this case.
When you say that, was there a lot of leads? You mean people would call in or they'd write in with information they thought was relevant to the investigation?
Yes, sir.
Was that one of the tasks of FDLE, was to take in all those items and then distribute them up to the tips and then distribute them out for investigative leads?
That was part of it, yes.
Did you also provide, I know Steve Miller was the case agent, but did you also utilize other investigative resources or other special agents to assist in this investigation?
Yes, we assigned people on a full-time basis, and FDLE being a statewide agency, as leads came in that were outside our local area, the city of Daytona or Volusia County, we had resources throughout the state that could follow up leads. So we would farm those out, and that certainly was a benefit.
And ultimately, was your goal to, I mean, did you prioritize trying to follow up on as many leads as possible, or all the leads?
It was a daily event. The task force would brief in the morning. We would keep a running list of the priority leads, and we're continually evaluating and prioritizing leads based on the information that was provided, the source that provided it. And so that was an ongoing endeavor, and they were assigned out to agents, and then the agents would follow back up, and then the next day report what had happened. And so it was much managing the resources and the information and the flow of that information and the documentation of that information.
And just because a lead came in, ultimately, does that mean it was actually relevant to the investigation?
No, sir.
But you guys still needed to follow up on those leads to either eliminate them as being relevant or not?
That was the goal, yes, sir.
Were you aware of the DNA evidence that connected up two of the victims in the case?
Yes, sir.
Based on knowing the DNA that was involved, did you all come up with a plan or have an idea as to utilize that as one of the investigative leads you wanted to follow up on?
Absolutely. Because there was physical evidence, DNA linking the original scene, the Gunther scene, and the Iwana Patton scene, we felt it was important to take every opportunity we could when dealing with persons of interest or suspects to try to obtain a DNA sample for the purposes of elimination. We did that with operations, street tactical operations in areas of the city where there was a lot of activity, and from that we were able to swab a very large number of people. The goal again being trying to identify the contributor to the DNA from scenes 1 and 3.
And when you say there was operations, I mean, would one of the, maybe operations have been for anyone who was arrested or linked up with some sort of prostitution or being a John? Would you voluntarily ask them if you could swab them to get their DNA?
Yes, sir.
So most of the, if not all of the DNA samples you received for that time window, they were mostly voluntary DNA samples?
Yes, sir.
During the course of the window of taking all these samples, did any of those DNA samples, besides ultimately Mr. Hayes' DNA, did any of the DNA samples that y'all took match up to the unknown DNA from the two victims?
No, sir.
Were you aware of the firearm evidence or the ballistics evidence in the case?
Yes, sir.
What was your investigative or thought process in reference to the ballistics evidence in reference to trying to see if that could lead to a viable suspect in the case?
Knowing that the ballistic evidence was conclusively identified as having come from the same firearm in both the Green and the Patton case, we felt it was important, after we had received information from our firearms expert, Felix Omar, he was able to, through his analysis, identify the make and the model of the firearm that was used based on the rifling characteristics of the evidence left at the scene. And that was a Smith & Wesson 40 caliber model VE handgun, semi-automatic. So based on that, we felt that was a good lead because, again, that was conclusive evidence. So if we could tie the gun or find the gun and tie that gun to a suspect, that certainly would be progress. So initially contacted the manufacturer, Smith & Wesson, determined at that time that there were tens of thousands of those firearms distributed throughout the nation. I believe beginning in 2003 it was first manufactured. So then we started to look at local licensed firearm distributors and gun shops because they're required to keep records by the federal government of sales at their point of sale for original sales on firearms. And starting in the Daytona Beach area and then moving outward, we subpoenaed records of people who had purchased that very firearm and came up with a list of people who were part of those overwhelming number of leads that we had hoped to interview and identify if the firearm still existed. If it did, what were the circumstances under which anybody who had it in their possession came about that firearm, as well as testing the firearms, voluntarily asking people if we could take their firearm to a controlled environment in a lab setting and do a controlled fire of it, keeping both the projectile and the cartridge, and submitting them to the lab for analysis for comparison against the ballistic evidence that was seized from the homicide scenes.
Just to break that down a little bit, so the first goal was to get a list of buyers of this specific, the Smith & Wesson 40 VE gun from the local dealers?
Yes, sir, because we knew those records existed, yes.
Once you received those, were those different purchases assigned to different agents or detectives to try and contact those individuals?
Yeah, as time allotted, yes, absolutely.
And I think you explained it, but just so we're clear, the goal of that was the agents would interview these individuals, and then if they still had the gun, try and get a voluntary sample of the casing and projectile from them?
Yes, sir.
During the course of your investigations, it would be fair to say you guys got, hundreds of casings and projectiles to send to the lab to compare?
Yes, sir.
Was any of those casing and projectiles, did they match up to the ballistics evidence that you had from the Julie Green and the Iwana Patton merch?
No, sir.
Of all the tips that you guys received during the course of the task force, and how long was the task force in effect, if you know, sir, about?
Late February 2006. I retired in 2009, January of 2009, and the task force was starting to shut down at that point. So at some point after my retirement in 2009, the task force no longer existed.
During the course of all those leads that came in, all those tips, did any of those leads or tips prove to be probative in your all's investigation at all? The specific leads, so you got either phone calls or letters that came in from different people with information. You followed up on all those leads, your
Correct.
agencies. Did any of those tips prove to be probative, providing you additional evidence to identify the person whose DNA was left at the scene, or the guns, ballistics that were left at the scene?
No, sir.
After Miss Patton's murder on when she was discovered on February 24th, was there any other murders that were linked in any way to the three murders together?
Your Honor, we have an objection on that.
right, it'll be overruled, it's been subject of a court order.
Yes,
But
sir.
we need to put something else on the record.
Only in light of our motions in limine.
I've already instructed the witness about the court's previous rulings.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
See, overruled.
No, sir.
May I have just a moment, Judge?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Thank you.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Would it be correct to say that your role in this part was not into the detail, but an overview of the investigation?
That's accurate. Yes, sir.
And as part of that overview, did you take the opportunity or have the opportunity to review evidence that was being collected on behalf of the government, particularly initially, of course, in the Gunther case? Did you have an opportunity to review the evidence that was collected at that point?
When you say review the evidence, do you actually tangibly look at the evidence itself or
Yes.
read the findings or reports about it?
Both.
To the latter, yes. Actually physically touching, examining the evidence, that was not my role, and I did not participate in that.
And having read the evidence, did you give any advice in the Gunther case as to any further investigation that would have to be performed, or any suggestions about the investigation?
That was almost an ongoing event with the task force where we would discuss strategy, many people in a room from different disciplines, and talk about tactics and strategies and ways to optimize our resources. So that was almost an ongoing thing throughout the case, not only with the first victim, but all three victims.
You may proceed. You shall ignore that, please.
In reference to the Julie Green case, were you aware of a bit of evidence that was collected from the bottom of her feet showing some type of a black substance?
No, sir.
You were not aware of that?
No, sir.
Were you aware of the investigation of the tire mold that was collected out at the Julie Green case?
Yes, sir.
And were you aware that that tire mold matched the original tire that made that mold at the U-Pullet location?
I'm familiar with that. Yes, sir.
Do you recall the results of the FDLE investigation of matching the original tire that was found out at the U-Pullet to the tire impression left at the Julie Green homicide location?
I do.
And what was the result of that?
The analysis from the FDLE forensic scientist in our Jacksonville lab, I believe, did that analysis and determined that the tire impression that was left at the Julie Green homicide scene was conclusively identified to be the tire that was seized, I believe, in June of 2006 from the U-Pullet junkyard in DeLand on Amelia Avenue.
In going back to the reference of that connection to that location, did you have any photographs that you had seen about the location? I'm pretty sure you didn't visit it personally, as to the condition of the ground around the facility?
I actually did visit the scene days afterwards, and it was a dirt road.
I'm going back to U-Pullet
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the crime scene. I apologize.
Yeah, my choice of question. You're fine. Did you visit the U-Pullet location?
Yes, sir.
And what was your observations of the ground surrounding that facility?
On the day of the search warrant?
Whenever you went there, yes, sir.
Okay. On the day of the search warrant, it was pouring rain, so it was very muddy.
However, what kind of an operation was it out there?
On that day, we executed an arrest.
No, I'm sorry, in general, not when you're executed.
Okay. A tip came in, a lead on a person of interest that we identified as working at the junkyard. In an effort to try to obtain that person's DNA sample covertly, we established a surveillance to watch this person in hopes that he would discard something that might contain his DNA. Example would be a cigarette butt, a cup he may drink from, or a can. We established a surveillance at that location somewhat surreptitiously under the guise of conducting another surveillance, all in hopes of watching this individual discard something so we could seize it and send it to the lab and compare it against the homicides evidence. A couple days into the surveillance, we were unsuccessful in doing that. The person of interest was determined to have a felony conviction on their record, and during the interaction with the undercover agents on surveillance, he confided in them and showed them a .45 caliber firearm that he had, and bragged to them about having other firearms. So that produced evidence of yet another separate and independent crime, which is carrying a concealed firearm by a felon. So we obtained a warrant for that individual's arrest, and we sought out to arrest him at the junkyard that day. And while we were there, we received consent to search the premises from the owner. So we searched the premises while we were there, because we had the opportunity to do so. And that's what resulted in the seizure of the tire that was identified back to the Julie Green site.
Was this person a black person or a white person without naming them?
He was a white person.
And you mentioned that you had seized weapons out there. Is there a list of weapons that you had seized at that location?
Yes, they're on the search warrant return. There were several.
Can you identify a few of the weapons? As an example, were there any rifles?
There were rifles there. I don't know that they were seized.
Can you tell what caliber they were?
Yeah, there were a variety of caliber of firearms there.
Would one of them have been a .22?
Possibly, I don't remember, sir.
Okay. Were a number of them .40 caliber?
There was no .40 calibers.
However, these were ones that you located around the premises. And where on the premises did you locate those?
Some of them were located in the person of interest's, he had a trailer, he was living out there. Some of them were located in the office of the proprietor.
Going back to my other question about the conditions of the ground, I understand it rained, so it was one condition. But normally, a junkyard of that size, did it appear to have oil and grease and so forth throughout the property?
It was a junkyard, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That's a yes.
Yes, sir.
Were you aware, I guess you were, of the sample of whatever substance was in the bottom of Julie Green's feet was submitted in evidence?
No, sir.
During your task force that was not disclosed to you, that there was one article of substance that was found in Julie Green's feet? I think you may have just answered that, so you were not aware of that?
That's correct.
If you were aware of that, would you have tried to collect grease materials from the ground out at U-Pullet to see if there was any type of a correlation or match?
Objection, Judge. Calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Could you repeat your question for me, please?
I'll I'll have to reword it, that was overruled. So, if I may, at no time did you ever, in your investigation, try to correlate the conditions, the ground conditions that you pull it to the substance on the bottom of Julie Green's feet?
I did not.
And is that because you were not made aware of that item of evidence?
No, sir.
Was a detective, Greg Seymour, part of your task force team?
Yes, sir.
And did he participate with you at that location?
Sir, I don't remember if he was present that day. He could have been, but I don't remember.
Yes, sir. When you discovered the weapon, was there any other investigative information that came to your knowledge that the operation was being used in an illegal manner for some other illegal premise?
At the U-Pullet junkyard,
Yes, sir.
there was no other crimes were identified out there.
May have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Going back to your overall investigation, do you recall how many owners there were of an SW-40 VE weapon that were interviewed and asked for their weapons?
I can estimate for you. I don't know the exact number, but I know leads were followed up throughout the state. I would estimate 100 or so owners that we identified and interviewed about their firearms.
And how were they identified?
Through the records provided by the gun dealers that were subpoenaed, the ATF records.
And those subpoenas went to a number of gun dealers throughout the county, Volusia County in particular?
Yes, sir. Our strategy was to start close to the scenes of the crime and work our way out with dealers, gun dealers.
And how far out did that investigation go as far as gun dealers selling that particular Smith & Wesson 40 millimeter weapon?
To the best of my recollection, I think we did a 50-mile radius from Daytona.
And you came up with approximately 100 owners?
That we interviewed.
That you interviewed?
Yes, sir. There were thousands of them sold.
Were there any that, there were thousands sold, but you contacted approximately 100 of the thousands?
The task force did. By the time I retired, that's correct. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. How many of those, if you have knowledge of your investigation on that part, refused to submit their weapons?
I don't want to speculate, and I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Would it be true to say that some did not surrender their weapons?
That's probably accurate.
Yes, sir. I just want to be sure of an earlier statement you made that the having to do with the I believe you mentioned in the Julie Green in the Laquetta Gunther case, that there was a match of weapons, or was it just a match of a caliber of weapon that was used?
The ballistic evidence at that scene that was retrieved was the projectile, which was a large caliber, 40 caliber round or projectile.
Do you recall the condition of that projectile?
I recall that it had the striations that were consistent with the other two scenes, which I believe, if memory serves me, it was 5 lands and grooves with a right twist, which was consistent with the other two scenes, and which was the basis of the information that Omar Felix used to tell us what the make and model of the firearm actually was.
Are you positive on your answer in reference to the condition of the bullet being capable of being tested because of its corroded condition? That particular bullet. And
What's your question? Am I uncertain about my answer?
Yes, sir. About your answer on Mr. Felix's evaluation of that particular projectile. Are you sure that he was able to test that and make a determination based on the condition of it being corroded on that particular one?
What I remember about that projectile is that it was submitted to the lab. I know nothing about corrosion of the projectile, and that it had the consistent striations of the projectiles found at the other two scenes, the shell casings from the other two scenes.
I'm only asking about.
Okay, that's my answer, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And in reference to that, are you familiar with the way the evidence is collected? It's sealed and preserved in the evidence room, whether an airtight evidence bag would cause corrosion for any reason on that particular bit of evidence?
I can't testify to that particular bit of evidence. Certainly moisture could cause that, but with that piece of evidence, I have no information about that. No, sir.
Well, you many years in the industry, and congratulations, sir. Appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Have you ever in the past, most recent past, back in 2004, 5, or 6, when you were in your position, experience where you had an item that was sealed in evidence over a period of 3 or 4 months that would deteriorate, or be corroded, or be corrupted in some form?
I'm going to object. This is outside the scope of his expertise.
Sustained.
No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
Just briefly, Judge. Thank you, sir. Mr. Bisland, the person of interest ultimately at the U-Pullet, was that a Gary Mansfield?
Yes, sir.
And just so the jury's clear, the search warrant you got for that location, that wasn't tied to this case at all. It was an independent crime?
That's correct.
Okay. And the arrest warrant for Mr. Mansfield, that wasn't tied to this case at all. That was a separate, the other crime he committed, right?
That is correct.
Ultimately, was Mr. Mansfield's DNA collected?
Yes, sir.
Did that DNA eliminate him being attached to any of the murder victims, the DNA found at their scene?
That is correct.
Can I have just a moment, Judge?
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Judge. Thank you.
Just to follow up on the last question, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Would it be correct to say that the focus of your investigation was concentrating on connecting the DNA from one homicide to the other?
Not exclusively, but that certainly was an important part of it. Yes, sir.
Okay. And as far as the DNA, I understand it was an important part, but as you found evidence, would you also use that evidence to try to determine, complete your investigation as to other options or other persons that may have been involved?
I think that's the very nature of evidence. It either tells a story, it tells a story, is it going to dispel concerns or confirm suspicions? And I'm sure.
Well, the primary question is on the DNA. You really were concentrating on that as a major part of identifying the person who committed the homicides. Would that be a correct statement?
That and other evidence, certainly. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
No, Judge, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. May the witness be excused, state?
Yes, sir.
Defense.
Yes, sir.
You release of the subpoena.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Have a good day. Take on your next witness.
State call J.J. Warren.
Raise your right hand, just one, please.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth and whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Switzer? Switch them 2 steps to the house. Thank you.
Make sure you speak loud and clear and into the microphone so they can hear your answers, please.
Yes, sir.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Could you please state your entire name and spell the last name for the court reporter, please?
First name's Jonathan, Jonathan. Last name is Warren, Warren.
Can you get you a little closer to the microphone?
Yes, sir.
And sir, are you a retired law enforcement officer?
I am.
Where are you retired from?
Daytona Beach Police Department.
How long were you with the Daytona Beach Police Department?
From 1991 to 2014, so just under 23 years.
And have you continued employment in law enforcement, or do you do something else now?
I do IT work right now.
So you said since 2014 you were retired.
Yes, sir.
Could you give the jury a brief summary just of your career as a Daytona Beach police officer, the various positions you held, and the rank at which you retired?
Yes, sir. Started out as a part-time police officer. Got hired full-time. Ended up in the patrol division. After a while, ended up on the traffic unit. Got into crime scene technician, and then eventually got into criminal investigation division. Finished that part out with major case, which is homicide, robbery. Went back to patrol for 3 more years and then retired.
Were you in the major case or the homicide investigation division back in 2005 and 2006?
Yes, sir, I was.
And did you take part in some ways in the task force which was investigating the homicides of Miss Gunther, Miss Green, and Miss Patton in 2005 and 2006?
Yes, sir, I did.
And when you were on the task force, did you become aware that there was a specific type of firearm that the investigation was focusing on?
Yes, sir.
And was that the Smith & Wesson .40 caliber VE?
Yes, sir, it was.
And were you assigned an investigative role related to that firearm?
Yes, sir, it was.
What was the role or task that you were given?
We were provided a list of persons that purchased that particular model, make and model, within the basically Volusia, Flagler area. We were provided names, addresses, serial number when they purchased it. Our goal was to contact the owners of that said firearm due to the fact that it was a match. From what we were told, it was a match that was used in the crime scenes. We would contact the owners and kind of go from there.
When you made contact with owners, and did you contact multiple people as part of your role?
I would say, I have it in my notes, but it's probably about, I personally have in my supplement close to 30 people within a 2-week period. They ranged from Daytona to New Smyrna to Ormond, so it was all over the county, so it took quite a while to track these people down.
And if the owners had the firearm still in their possession, would you ask to test fire, to borrow and test fire the weapon?
Yes, sir. Our assignment was to, again, contact the owners if they did currently possess the firearm. We didn't go into too much detail other than the fact that we were just conducting an investigation. If they had the firearm, we asked if they would allow us to take it to a local law enforcement shooting range. So therefore, if we were in New Smyrna, we would go to the New Smyrna Police Department. We would fire 2 rounds down the line, collect the shell casings from that firearm, take some photographs, confirm the serial number, obviously, and then return it to the owner and submit the shell casings that we took after we fired the gun, submitted them into evidence for analysis.
And you said in your notes it indicated about 30 people. Did you create a running report which included your interaction with individuals that were on the gun list?
Yes, sir, I did.
May I approach a witness, Your Honor?
May.
Showing you what's marked for identification as states WW. Just flip through that and look up when you're done. Make sure you recognize it.
Yes, sir, I did.
What is that item?
This appears to be a several-page supplemental report indicating my involvement within the cases. Kind of goes into the earlier parts, and then it goes into basically a category of contacting the owners, listing the owners' names, where we came into contact, and a brief synopsis of that involvement.
And is that one of the reports that you prepared, or you reviewed for preparation to testify here today?
Yes, sir.
And does that include portions of your contact with individuals who bought the Smith & Wesson .40 caliber?
Yes, sir.
And is there a date on that report? A date at the, I guess, in the bottom when the report was created, or?
It appears to be April 8th of 2006.
When you created that report back in April of 2006, would your memory of the contact with each individual have been fresh in your mind?
At that point, fairly fresh. I mean, I kind of kept a running tally. It wasn't like after the 2-week period, okay, let me try and remember it as I went.
Okay, so you actually say you made contact with somebody on March 15th. You would have summarized that report, that information probably before the report was finalized on the 8th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And would you have recorded the information regarding the individuals you contacted accurately within that report?
Yes, sir.
In review of your reports, was one of the individuals you contacted a gentleman by the name of Robert Hayes?
Yes, sir.
As you sit here today, do you have an independent recollection of making contact with Mr. Hayes?
It's obviously resurfaced over the last couple of years, but a vague recollection of it.
So you don't have a complete memory of your contact and your communication with Mr. Hayes?
No, sir, not from 16 years ago, I wish.
Is that true not only for Mr. Hayes, but for many of the other people you contacted because of the numbers you contacted?
That's correct.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask that the retired detective, be allowed to read the summary regarding his contact with Mr. Hayes as a past recollection recorded into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
You may proceed.
If you can turn to the page, I believe I highlighted it in the report. You've already got it there.
Yes, sir.
That paragraph on that page of the report, does that summarize your contact with Mr. Hayes?
Yes, sir.
If you could go ahead and just read it verbatim.
Can I stop here? Folks, you need to understand that the police report itself is not the evidence, okay? You may proceed.
Go ahead, sir.
All right. As an excerpt from this supplemental report that I authored, I guess is a better lack of word, in the supplement it has Haynes, Robert Tyrone, black male, It gives an indication of where it was at. The contact was 427 Jefferson Street, Daytona Beach, Florida, 32114. The content of it says, contact was made with Hayes on March 21st, 2006. Hayes advised that he did purchase the handgun, serial number P as in Papa, D as in Dog, B as in Boy, 7307 from Buck's Gun Rack on November 17th, 2005. He advised he gave the handgun to his mother, Florence Hayes of West Palm Beach, a week later. Her phone number is 561-845-4455.
Thank you, Detective. I'm now going to show you what's marked for identification as states XX. Does that appear to be a list of gun purchases related to the task force?
Yes, sir, it does.
And is Mr. Hayes, or as your report said, Mr. Haynes, is he indicated on page 2 of that list?
I have him on page 3, sir.
Page 3, my
Yes, sir.
mistake.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yes, sir.
And I know your report said Haynes. What's his name on, how does his name appear in that report, or that list?
On this list that we received, it's actually, his last name on here is Hay, and then there's what appears to be an N crossed out with an ES, so it appears to be Haynes as opposed to Hayes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And could that have been the reason for the typo in your report?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'll tender the witness. Thank you, sir.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Detective, do you still have your report up there?
I do, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No.
Good morning, Detective Warren.
Good morning, Mr. Shea.
In reference to your speaking with Mr. Hayes, did you inform him as to why you were interested in the handgun he had purchased?
Specifically, no, sir. I believe, as I advised earlier, we kind of kept the information that we gave out minimal. We just indicated that we were conducting a criminal investigation where we need assistance from the public.
But you did use the issue of conducting a criminal investigation when you spoke with him, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And during that time, were there other incidences of crimes occurring in and around the county, such as robberies, other issues of the use of guns?
I would imagine so, yes, sir.
Yes. And you did recognize that Mr. Hayes was of a minority type person, that he was a black person?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Other than telling him that the gun was going to be used in an investigation, a criminal investigation, did you share any other information why you had come to him specifically?
I would believe so, yes, sir. I would have advised him that he was on a list of a particular make and model gun that was purchased within the area.
In your years of investigation, when confronting a person who is of a minority class, would you find it that if they have any sense of being involved in a criminal case, that they would be reluctant to cooperate with you?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll overrule it. He can answer if he can understand the question.
I sort of understand the question. I don't think, in my mind, race had that wasn't a factor. It was a criminal investigation, whether you were white, black, purple, orange, or yellow. Race had no matter in this.
That's you, correct? I believe you indicated that you had spoken with approximately, what number of people did you confront with the same presentation that you wanted to examine their gun?
As indicated earlier, I'd say close to 30, between 25 and 30 persons within a 2-week period.
Did all of those people surrender their gun to you?
All of them, no. Some of them we contacted still had the firearm. Some of them didn't have the firearm. They either didn't like the gun, took it back, or sold it to someone else within a time frame.
When you were told that fact, did you investigate to see if that was a true and accurate statement given to you by that particular person other than Mr. Hayes?
As far as the ones that did not possess the firearm any longer?
Yes.
Yes, if we contacted John Smith, and John Smith said he gave it to Bobby Jones, we would try and get as much information on Bobby Jones. I mean, it was a snowball effect. It wasn't just, oh, okay, John Smith doesn't have it anymore, so let's just stop. It was a cascading type of thing. So yes, if they told us they sold it to someone else, or they returned it sold it at a pawn shop, or whatever the case may be, we would follow up on it.
And you followed up in each and every one of those leads?
Me specifically, no, sir. There was jurisdictional issues.
Well, that's the one I'm asking about you, sir, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you were not able to testify today to your personal knowledge that in each and every one of those cases where someone was reluctant to give you a gun, or they told you that they no longer had possession because they had given it to a third party, you were not the one who followed up specifically on that information?
If it was within my jurisdiction, City of Daytona Beach, I would.
And what did you do in reference to the telephone number then that was given to you by Mr. Hayes, his mother's telephone number?
Due to the fact it was outside of the city limits, outside of the county, in a different area within Florida, we would relay it to the FDLE agents that we were working with.
Okay, so you did nothing to follow up on that information?
Correct, sir.
And were there other cases where the gun was provided outside of your jurisdiction that you did not follow up on?
I'm not certain, sir, without looking back deep into the files.
And was part of your instruction as to what you would do with the gun? In other words, if it was given to you, did you tell him that he would have to go to a fire range conducted by the Daytona Beach Police Department to test fire his gun? Did you give him that follow-up instruction?
Give who?
Mr. Hayes.
No, sir. He didn't have it, so there was nothing that I could provide to him information-wise.
Well, in your investigation, did you tell him, besides your following up on a criminal investigation, what you were going to do with the weapon once you had possession of it?
I don't understand your question, sir.
Well, did you give any further instructions as to what you were going to be using the weapon to collect evidence? The procedure that you were going to be using to require him to go to a Daytona Beach police-sponsored firing range?
I don't recall specifically, but I don't think I would have advised him anything beyond that if he told me he did not have it.
So I want to be sure we understand the core information that you left with Mr. Hayes when you went to speak with him about the pistol he had purchased. Your conversation is limited to the fact that he told you he no longer had the weapon, that he had given it to his mother and gave you a phone number, And after that, you had no further conversation with him?
No, I think it was at most a 5 to 10 minute contact. It wasn't a long drawn out thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Going to your personal experience in confronting someone of a minority group, did you find that or did you ever have that experience in dealing with other people from a minority group where you confronted them that you wanted to collect evidence of a crime?
I've been in many situations, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Did you find any of those reluctant to cooperate with you?
I think I advised earlier, sir, that color doesn't matter.
I'm asking, did you find them not to be cooperative?
I found white people, I found black people, I found brown people. Yes, people can be hesitant.
Both white and black?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. May the witness be excused? Thank you.
You may, yes, Your Honor.
Defense. May he be excused? Oh, yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next witness, please.
Next witness, Judge, is going to be via Zoom.
Okay.
And is that Mr. Bazzelio?
Okay, and then would you call the next witness for the record?
Florence Hayes.
Okay, Ms. Hayes, can you hear me? This is Judge Zambrano speaking.
Yes, good morning.
Ms. Hayes, would you please raise your right hand and be sworn?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
Madam to the jury.
That's good.
Good morning, Ms. Hayes.
good morning.
Let me know if for some reason you can't hear me, but I'm going to try to speak up, okay?
Okay, I hear you.
All right, great. Can you please state your entire name and spell your last name?
My name is Florence Hayes, Hayes.
Hold on, Bill. Can you take them out? Ma'am, can you move the mouse so the pointer is not in the middle of her face? Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Ma'am, do you know Robert Hayes?
Yes,
How do you know Robert Hayes?
that's my son.
Where did Robert Hayes go to college?
Bethune-Cookman, Daytona Beach.
Did you recall when he graduated from college about?
2006.
And eventually, a few years later, did he move back to Palm Beach County?
A few years.
Several years later, did he come back to
Oh.
Palm Beach County?
Yeah.
And ma'am, at any time when Mr. Hayes was in college, did he ever give you a firearm as a gift?
No,
Did he ever in his entire life give you a firearm as a gift?
no,
And back in college, was Mr. Hayes driving a vehicle that actually belonged to you?
yes,
Was that a white Chevrolet van or something to that effect?
yes.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Just one more question, Ms. Hayes. You understand that this is your son's trial, right?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. I want to make sure for the record that Ms. Hayes can see Mr. Hayes in the courtroom. Based on
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shea, do you have any questions?
I do, Your Honor. If you have one moment, please.
Yes. Mr. Shea,
Thank you, Your Honor.
up here, all the way up here.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Ms. Hayes.
Good morning.
In reference to your son driving the white Chevy van, would it be correct to say that that van was sent to the junkyard in summer of 2005?
I don't remember when it was, but it was.
He had the van earlier in his years of college up here. Do you remember what years he started college and when he had the van?
I don't even remember when I bought the van. Not really. I really don't remember. I know I bought the van, so I don't remember. But I know he had it up there.
Yeah. Was it a used van?
Yes.
You bought it? And you do recall it being sent to the junkyard, is that correct?
Yeah.
Because you would have had to give, signed a title. Was the van in your name?
Yes.
Let's kind of reflect back again on your memory of when it was sent to the junkyard.
Ooh.
I'll reject the form. There hasn't been a question asked
Asked and answered? Did you send it to the junkyard?
and asked and answered if that's where Mr. Hayes going.
Okay. Just trying to test her memory if she can recall the exact time.
My memory is 80 years old. It wouldn't be. I wouldn't know.
I think she's giving you the best answer.
I think so, Your Honor. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, one other question. Were you ever contacted before the last several years about the gun that Mr. Hayes had given you?
Was I contacted?
When were you first contacted and asked the question about that?
When he was arrested.
Okay, 2019?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
No, Judge.
All right, thank you. May Ms. Hayes be released from the subpoena?
Yes, Judge, she may.
Is the defense, you have her under subpoena?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Hayes, you're still subject to a subpoena, but you'll be excused for now, okay? You'll be excused.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Judge, can we put this back into the waiting room?
Okay.
And then we'll, Ms. McRoberts, we're gonna put you back in the waiting room for, and we'll let you know in a few minutes when we'll get you back out, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, she's in the waiting room. You have another witness?
I do, Judge, yes, sir. A statement called Randy Edwards.
Hey, the clerk, you can read the right this one, please.
Swear affirm that the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir. Just wait, sir. 2 step, just watch your step. Thank you.
Make sure you speak loud and clear into the microphone so they can hear you, okay?
Yes, sir.
Lean a little closer.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury, spell your last name?
Randy Edwards, RandyEdwards.
Mr. Edwards, what did you do previously as a job? What was your career?
I was in law enforcement for a total of 29 years.
Where did you work when you were in law enforcement?
I started out with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office 6 years, and I went to City of Riviera Beach Police Department for 23 years plus.
Now, where is the city of Riviera Beach located?
It located in Palm Beach County between the city of West Palm Beach and Palm Beach Gardens.
Can I bring your attention back now to December 15th of 2006? Were you working as a law enforcement officer for Riviera Beach back then, sir?
Yes, I were.
What was your assignment back then? What was your role, if you remember?
At that time, I was assigned to a beach patrol.
Sounds like a fun job. Did there come a time on December 15th, 2006, somewhere late in the afternoon, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, where you were asked to take a report of a report from somebody?
Yes.
Can you describe the circumstances, if you remember about that and what happened?
I was at the police department, our headquarters, and all our units was tied up on calls, so the dispatch asked me could I take the call in the lobby.
So someone had come in and wanted to file a police report?
Yes.
Did you go and take this police report?
Yes, I did.
Where did you go to take the police report?
Went out to the police lobby and escorted the victim to the report writing.
Okay, so you have a room in Riviera Beach to write reports?
Yes, we do.
When you took that individual to take the report, did you get their driver's license and identification information?
Yes.
What was the name of that individual, if you remember, sir? Do you need to see your report?
Let me see my report, yeah.
May I approach the witness, Judge?
You may.
And just take your time, and if you need any, when you're done, just look up if you don't mind, sir.
Yes, I see the name here.
Okay. Does that help refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay. What was the name of the individual you took a report from?
Robert Hayes.
And I know it was a long time ago. Do you remember generally what that person's appearance was?
I don't remember what he was wearing, but...
Was he a black male?
Oh, it was a black male, absolutely.
Did you actually have a little conversation with him, a side conversation?
Yes, he basically told me he was college. He has a criminal justice degree.
What crime did he want to report to you at that time?
A stolen firearm.
Did you take a report from him?
Yes, I took it.
Okay. What did he tell you had happened in reference to that?
He told me that his gun was stolen, and I questioned him that he was sure it was stolen in the city of Riviera Beach. And
why did you ask that? Did he reside in a different city?
yes.
Okay. So he resided in a different city. So you asked him if it was in Riviera Beach. What was his response when you asked that?
He told me, yes, it was stolen in Riviera Beach.
What was the circumstances of the theft?
After further investigation, questioning him, I just didn't believe it. I told him the gun wasn't stolen. I can't believe it was stolen in Riviera Beach. You sure? And I was hesitant on taking a report because it didn't make sense.
What was his story that didn't make sense to you?
He said that he went over to this complex, this apartment complex. It's located on Avenue J in Riviera Beach. It's a apartment complex, which we have numerous calls over there because the crime in that area. And first, I didn't understand why he was over there. And then he told me I said, well, where was your gun located? He said, on the floorboard of his vehicle. And I said, where about on the floorboard? He said on the passenger side, which didn't make sense to me, during my investigation. And I said, was your doors locked? Did it force? And he said, no, my window was down and left the doors unlocked. And that didn't make sense to me.
So the fact that he left a gun right on the passenger floorboard with the windows down, doors open, that caused you to maybe have some suspicion about it?
Absolutely.
Did you actually, though, take the report as part of your responsibility, though?
Yes, based on my experience and my training, we was always told to do a report, regardless, how you feel, just document something. But can I just elaborate on documentation? On document reports?
That's okay. You take a report because you were just following procedure.
Because things happen, then it comes back.
Yes, sir. During the course of you taking the report from him, did you get the serial number from him?
Absolutely. He brought it to me.
If I show you a report, would you be able to pull from your report and tell us what the serial number was, sir?
Yes, I can.
May I approach the witness again, Judge?
You may.
If you can just take a moment, sir, to look at that.
The serial number that I put in the report was P as in Papa, O as in Oscar, B as in Bravo, 7307.
Okay. Did he also tell you how much he paid for the firearm?
Yes, he did. $288.80.
He knew exactly how much he paid?
That's what he gave me.
Yes, sir. Thank you. May I have just a moment, Judge?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Any cross-examination? Yes, Your Honor. Having read the report, did that alert your mind to all the other details that occurred out there as far as your conversation with Mr. Hayes?
Yes, sir.
Did he explain that he was at his brother's apartment in the apartment complex, which was next to the shopping center?
It's not a shopping center, it's an apartment complex.
Oh, the apartment complex, okay. So did he explain to you why he was at that apartment complex?
Don't recall.
He did tell you that he was living in West Palm Beach and that he had just arrived in Riviera Beach, is that correct?
Yes, he said he was over at that location.
That he had just moved there, is that correct?
No. He said he was over there. Why he was over there, I don't know.
Okay, so you don't have any idea when he had moved there?
No, he said he lived in West Palm.
He lived in West Palm, but he was just there at his brother's apartment?
I don't know who he was visiting. I can't recall who we were visiting over there. I didn't document that in my report.
You did mention that, what's that? You did indicate that was an area of high crime?
Yes.
And did he indicate to you that he was there assisting his brother and mother as well at that location?
Sir, all I can recall was my report. It didn't make sense to me, how the circumstance he told me his gun was stolen with the windows down. That's why I had disbelief, and I just documented what he told me.
Did you observe the vehicle or only take his information in the substation room?
Yes.
So you didn't go out and review or look at the vehicle
No, I did not.
to see if it had other items other than the window down?
So now?
In other words, you didn't review the vehicle, so you couldn't determine if there were other items in the vehicle?
No.
So the only information you come to court with today is your conversation with him that took place in the squad room?
In the police department, yes.
Yes, sir. How long did that conversation take place, do you recall?
Looked like I finished my report at 1800 hours. About a good hour. I
About
would
an hour
say.
you spent with him?
I'll type the report out.
Did you ask him any other information as to why he was at that apartment complex?
Judge asked and answered. He doesn't remember.
Witness can answer if he remembers.
I don't recall.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
Just real briefly, Judge. Sir, do you remember what kind of gun it was that he reported stolen?
I believe it was a Smith & Wesson. I need to look at the report.
Yes, sir.
We can look at that and see the gun and type, if that'll help you, sir.
It was a Smith & Wesson Model VE stainless with a black handle.
Right. I think just referring to your report here, is it a VE? Is that what the report says?
That's a model,
Yes, and it's a 40 caliber?
40 caliber.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Anything else? Mr. Shea?
Just one quick follow-up question, Your Honor. One question. If you remember, did he tell you that he lived with his mother and brother in that apartment complex?
No, he did not. I don't recall.
Or you don't recall?
He said he lived in West Palm. That's what gave me, didn't believe that the gun was stolen in Riviera, because he said he lived in West Palm.
I'm only talking about the one question.
Okay, no, he didn't tell me that.
Thank you. Okay.
Anything else? No, Your Honor.
Nothing from the state, Judge.
All right, may the witness be excused?
Yes, sir.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
The witness will be released from the subpoena. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take our recess.
Just we can sidebar for one moment.
Yeah. We're going to take a 15-minute break. We're going to take it at this time. You're welcome to go outside if you want to take a smoke break.
Witness Cameron?
Witness?
Your witness
Oh,
Cameron?
yes, yeah. Thanks. 15-minute break. Okay, thank you. We're in recess.
How much time are we?
15 minutes. Are you with the news journal?
Used to be. I'm with Law&Crime now.
With this network?
No, I'm independent from that.
Because I only allow one still camera, and that was to the news journal for school purposes. You took a photograph.
I didn't know that, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, we gotta go by the rules, okay? So, everything has to go through the pool.
Is audio okay or not?
Well, we go through the pool.